Hey, is perfectionism killing your business? Well, stop the scroll because I am going to talk to you today about the secret system that will help you to stop perfectionism so you can get your business off the ground and grow it and scale it much easier than you could if you get locked into perfectionism. All right, so let's get started. So all month long, we've been talking about perfectionism, and we've talked about all the different things that you can use, like the good enough principle and the iterative process of development to stop perfectionism. And so today I wanted to talk more about the framework of Scrum and how you can leverage that framework for you so that you can stay out of perfectionism and get your work done so you can get that course out there or whatever it is, launch that business, whatever it is that you're trying to do. So the first thing you want to do, well, Scrum, if you don't know, is the Agile Project Management Framework, and it helps people collaborate more and teams collaborate more and innovate, right? Because the focus is on creating the best solution for now, but not creating necessarily the most complete and vast solution, right? So what they do is they use the prioritization process in order to get the most important features out there first and then build upon that with iterations, right? So that's that iterative process. So how Scrum comes in is it helps you to break things down by working in sprints. You work in a sprint, it's a 1 week to 4 weeks, somewhere in there time frame where you're going to have a finite amount of things that you need to do, not a rolling to-do list, right, that rolls from sprint to sprint, but a sprint that has one deadline and you have a finite amount of tasks that you need to do within that timeline. Now, the key here is prioritization, right? Because let's say you have a project you're working on and that project is going to take you months, and it's going to take you months because of the amount of time that you can put into the project, right? And so what you want to do is prioritize the must-have items first and then put all those other ones aside so that you just get those must-haves done first and foremost, making your product complete so that if at the end of the sprint you wanted to, say, roll it out to a test group or something like that, you could do that while you're working on the other features. And so that's what Scrum does for us. It has these small time-boxed events called sprints, and you work within the sprints and you prioritize the items so that you don't book more than the time you have within the sprint. You prioritize them, and you prioritize by must have, should have, could have, and won't have at this time. So think about the iPhone, right? I talk about the iPhone all the time. The iPhone 1 didn't have flash photography. It didn't have the forward-facing camera. Why? Because they wanted to make their July deadline, and they weren't sure if they would make it if they added those features in, or whatever the reason, they decided to cut those out so that they could launch that thing when they promised in July of 2007, and they went on to sell 1.3 million phones in the next 6 months of that line. And that's great, right? Because what happens if you can do that? What happens if you can get the main features out there of your course or service or whatever it is that you're creating, and then build upon that as you go and make some money, right? You can make that money just like Apple did. They sold 1.3 million phones. What if you could sell 10 or 15 or 20 or 100 of that particular product and generate some much needed revenue to put back into that project to continue its growth and its success, right? So working in sprints is a really great way for you to do that, because you can actually have something that's releasable after each sprint if you plan it right and you do those must-haves and complete those particular features. So that helps you kind of a luff that's in there and get to the, the product that you are trying to put out there with the core result that you're trying to create. Then you can, and create, more fluff and more of the things that make it a better product, maybe, a user experience, or has exceptions, like, exception, you might handle it this way instead of, the way, or what it is that you want to add to that product or service that you are putting out there. So the next thing is the daily Scrum. The daily Scrum is like a stand-up meeting, right? We all kind of know what a stand-up meeting is. It's quick, right? 15 minutes. We get it out, together. We talk about what we did, what what we have and what we're going to do today. And if you did that, even if you work alone, if you just did that with yourself every single morning, you look at, okay, what did I do yesterday? And you look, you update, you find out where you're at, what the progress is. You ask yourself, what are the obstacles you're facing? And then start mitigating those. And then, what are you going to do today? Well, today I'm going to mitigate this one risk that I have or this obstacle that I have. I'm going to do research on this. I'm going to do this task. Now you have like this to create your little daily task list, right? Without derailing yourself from the whole entire sprint. So you're always revisiting your sprint board, which is basically a Kanban board. It has 3 columns on it: to do, doing, and done. And so you put everything that you have in progress in that doing column. And then if you have to leave it in the middle of the day, you can write yourself some notes in there and where you left off. You can put the links in there for all of the different browser tabs that you need to have and that you need to have open while you're doing that task. And that way you can pick up right where you left off and making it really, really easy to pick up the next day, right? So the daily scrum is a great way for you to kind of keep yourself focused on what you're supposed to be doing in that sprint, and then move forward for the next day. And then we have sprint review and we have the sprint retrospective. Now the sprint review is something we do like halfway through the sprint and then again at the end of the sprint. And this is a way for us to be transparent with what we're actually producing. So if you're working with a team, so that we can ensure that we're not what we call gold plating our products and services, which is adding things that are really not necessary or weren't even asked for into product or service, and just adding more time and more complexity and all of those things that can actually delay your product release, right? Because if you have a delay in your product release, you're money, right? You're losing money when you do that. So you want to make sure that you get your stuff out on time. And a sprint review is a really good way for you to measure your progress. And then once you know that in your progress for that sprint, you can then reprioritize again to make sure that you get the most important things done first. And that's a really good time during the sprint review to maybe possibly move some things from the sprint if you need to. Some of those won't have at this time. Maybe some of those things that were a could have, and now you're going to change it to a won't have at this time, right? And that way you can get your product out there on time, and then you can go through an iterative process, continuous improvement on that per service, and keep making all of those improvements that you want to have. Now, the sprint retrospective is a little bit different. It's really designed for you to look back at your process of how you executed your work, how you did Scrum and how you did those things and how you managed everything, and look at kind of how you did. And when you do that, you actually pay attention again on continuous improvement and how you can keep improving yourself and improving your processes so you don't get stuck in those traps like procrastination, perfectionism, and overwhelm, right? And so that way you can keep things moving along with that sprint retrospective, and you're kind of on how you're doing in terms of your level of maturity in terms of implementing the work that you need to implement to get your job done. Because the biggest challenge with solopreneurs is managing all the work, right? There's so much work to do. There's so many things to do. And so by getting more efficient at managing your work and handling how it moves across your desk, you're going to be better at not getting caught up in perfectionism and stuff, because you'll have less self-doubt, right? But you'll have more confident in how you're moving through your process and your intentions when you do things like a minimum viable product, right? And then the last thing is that, get into the perfectionism trap. It can really kill innovation. And so instead, you want to take a more curious approach to how you're managing work, how you're developing your products and services so that you can stay innovative. But that doesn't mean it's okay to just, work. You want to phase things in as you can, focusing on the must-have items first, and then the could-haves and the should-haves. But don't ever squash the innovation. And that's one of the problems that, in teams, in leaders often have with their teams is they get stuck in perfectionism, and then the team doesn't know how to behave, right? They get afraid to make decisions. They get afraid to innovate or take any initiative whatsoever because your perfectionism as a leader is squashing them. And so that's one of the things that you want to focus on, is staying out of that perfectionism trap and making sure that you are focused on continuous improvement, the iterative process, and what are those must-haves? What are the features that are absolutely needed to get that product out there and make some revenue so you can put it back into that project and make it even better year after year and through the life of it, right? Because think about it, if you create a course, that course is needing to be maintained for the life of it, right? Until it's retired. So once you create it, you probably want to have some sort of a review process quarterly or annually or something like that, where you're adding features. Now you may have more through it early on because maybe you got the minimum viable product out there and now you have a few more iterations you want to do to make it a little bit more complete, more robust, right? And evolution for your clients. But then after that, when you feel like, okay, you know, stable, it's where we want it to be, then you could do an annual review where you just go in and update the course and make sure that, you know, you're still functioning or they're still accurate, or, you know, you don't need to make changes to that. So think about that when you're creating your products, that documentation of that product can be really helpful during the iterative process, right? Because you can go back, you can see, one, what the intention was of the course originally, and two, you can see all the content in one place where you're not having to thumb through a bunch of videos or membership site or something like that, trying to see what is in the course itself. You can have it all documented in one place, easy for you to consume so that you can make those changes much more easily. And then you can actually have a VA or something do the updates for you. If like make a new video, then they can go do the updates in the membership site. If you change the text or add something new, they can go make those changes to the membership site for you. So you don't have to, and you have a record of those changes and how it evolved, so that you know what the intention was later on down the road and you don't forget. All right, so those are my tips on how you can use Scrum and the iterative process, of course, and the good enough principle and the minimum viable product to prevent perfectionism, so that you can get your products and services out there faster, start making money sooner, and not have the headache of being stuck in perfectionism and let it kill your business. All right, if you have any questions, please put them in the comments, say hello, and I will see you there in those comments. And you can get my workbook on perfectionism at my website, thescrumshop.com/perfectionism. All right, we'll see you in the comments. Bye.